It's our weekly discussion program called Moral Side of the News, and we're here again this week, and we're glad you're alongside. I'm John Blim with the WHAS Crusade for Children. With me, as usual, is a distinguished panel. This week, Rabbi Gaylia Rooks, the Temple, Reverend Dr. Kilen Gray, Louisville Presbyterian Theological Seminary, and Father Joe Graffis, Archdiocese of Louisville. We are in year 3 of COVID-19, and all of us dream about life as we once knew it. For some, that means getting rid of masks and mask mandates. Jefferson County Public Schools is about to make wearing masks optional, and the Louisville St. Patrick's Day Parade is back after being called off the past 2 years. So panelists, Jefferson County's risk threat went from red to yellow, but it's still not green. That's based on COVID cases and deaths. What's your take on this?
I still am very concerned personally about COVID. Obviously, we'll talk about Wayne Perkey a little bit later today, of happy memory, and obviously fully vaccinated and yet still dies of the effects of COVID. So there's still much danger out there. So I understand that, maybe we can let go of some masks, but I'm going to wear a mask as often as I can wherever I go, especially in public places. Because I think, and I just wonder when the next variant is going to hit. So I don't think we're out of the woods yet.
Well, I would like to see us hit green before we take off the mask mandates personally. I mean, I just came from New York and they lifted their mask mandates, but I would say 75% of the people are still wearing masks, even though they're in the green. And that's how they got there. They were so good about, to get indoors to a restaurant, you had to show a vaccination card and a license to prove it was you. And what surprised me is that even just walking down the street, which, I think I'm very cautious, on the side of very cautious here, but, if I'm just walking down the street, I take my mask off then. But even just people, you see people walking down the street and they have their masks on. It's become a way of life, and it shows that it really works, because I think they have less than 2% positivity rate. I mean, that's fabulous. I think that they are really to be commended. And we don't have the vaccination numbers, not just all of Kentucky, but right here in Jefferson County, where I'm recording from. So I think it's too soon. I think, waiting another month would have been a great idea. The kids are almost out of school, and I believe in erring on the side of caution. And I don't want to see that next wave, Joe. I know you don't either.
So there's definitely a continued concern in different spaces of this while we go through this pandemic together. I also believe in erring on the side of caution and of health and safety. I will be wearing a mask when I'm out in the public. I will probably be doing that for months on end, even after we move from a medium to a low risk level in Jefferson County. It's just been a part of what I am and what I do. Here at Louisville Seminary, we're among our community members, both staff and students, we're 99% vaccinated and boosted within our community, which gives us the kinds of grounds to be able to adjust our COVID policy from a required masking mandate. We've just done that today, Thursday of the week, where we've moved from requiring masks to encouraging people to wear a mask, but only requiring it when we have gathered events like chapel service, public events, special events on campus. Some of our classrooms that are rather large, we're asking everyone to wear a mask there. As it relates to JCPS, I really think it's too soon. I really believe it's too soon. There's a lot of risk that's still, that can be brought to bear. The the level of COVID risk is countywide, but there are variances within specific spaces. And I think about the teachers, I think about the janitors, I'm thinking about the staff persons in JCPS who, will still have a significant risk. And I pray that while the shift is now for optional mask wearing, I really hope that all of the staff and the teachers will just continue to do that to make sure that they are safe and keep the people in their families safe. But I agree with the others that this change for JCPS is too soon. It's too soon for JCPS.
My husband teaches at Bellarmine, and he said just this morning, because it's no longer mandatory, it's optional, and he said that 3/4 of his students didn't have masks on.
Yeah.
So do we think masks are here to stay, though, as part of our everyday life for some of us? I remember years and years ago, maybe decades, do you remember seeing images from Japan where people wore masks a lot? But that was an air quality issue, I know, but certainly more accepted, not a stigma. Do you think we'll ever get there?
I hope
I don't know. I think it depends a lot on the, go ahead, Gail, you were going to say something?
No, please.
I just think, I think we're going to have COVID in some form probably for the foreseeable future. And I think, as we've all said, caution for the sake of the common good of all. I just think in certain places I'm going to wear a mask. I do wear a mask to church, although I don't wear it all the time. Obviously can't do it when I'm preaching, but
actually you can. I'm just saying.
Right.
I mean,
it's a little garbled sometimes, but I'm far enough away from people that it's more than 6 feet. So at least the way I do it. But so I just think and I know there are people there who I just think we need to be cautious, even if it's optional, where possible, or wherever you think, like Kilen was saying. I think when you feel like you may be exposed to people who are not vaccinated, then I'm going to wear it. So I think we've got to be cautious about that. But I think that the political thing has gotten so bad that people want to have their freedom. I don't understand that argument completely. So, but I think for the sake of the common good, we're going to be using masks a lot in the future.
Joe, I agree with you about the freedom political argument that is really so filled with duplicity when it comes to stating the liberty of a person's choice, their body and their choice, and then with the same stroke of a pen can limit the liberty and freedoms of other persons who have that same argument. It is just really sad to see that. I share with you my confusion about the push of individual freedoms and risking the health and the safety of a community. It just makes no sense to do that. And so I grieve the political state that we're in. I grieve that we've allowed vaccinations and masking to become such a political hotbed in such a way that people are threatening public servants over this. There's no ethical explanation for that. There's no moral explanation for that other than self-aggrandizement or something that puts the person over the safety of others. I agree with you with that. I mourn that, deeply mourn that.
Yeah, I have said all along, there are certain freedoms that we don't have, especially, where my freedom ends, where yours begins. But even other things, it's like I keep coming back to the thing about seatbelts, although someone had told me a better example, but I still come back to seatbelts. Wearing a seatbelt isn't even really to protect other people, it's to protect you. And if maybe you could say it's to protect the finances of our healthcare system because of head injuries and, major medical crises in a car accident where someone is not wearing a seatbelt. But, that's a law, and it's it's a good law, and it saves lives, and it saves medical expenses, as I said. And it seems to me, not that I'm encouraging this, but it seems to me people would argue that's more of an infringement on their personal lives, what I do in my own car. I mean, not running red lights, obviously, because that endangers others, but not wearing a seatbelt, that's only me. But we all recognize, well, I don't know about all, but I think most people, it's not political, the question of, oh, my freedom and wearing a mask. It's not about your own freedom. It's about trying to help the community, trying to help, being part of a caring community that, I mean, you don't know who's immunocompromised around you. You don't know. I don't understand. I don't even understand why people aren't being vaccinated. And I think it's very sad. Very, very sad.
I don't know whether people have refused to be vaccinated for measles and
well, that's becoming
polio and all those kind of things. But I said, if you're going to do it for one, why not for another? I mean, that doesn't make logical sense to me. And then you have the other thing where we want to have total freedom, but then we're going to tell teachers there's only certain things you can teach and certain things you can't teach. That's not limiting freedom.
It's all political. It's absolutely all political. This country is more divided than it has been since the Civil War. And I just don't understand. To get back to your original question, though, John, will masks continue? I think as this becomes more endemic rather than pandemic in nature, that and more people, well, if more people don't get vaccinated, then perhaps not. But when we think about the flu, a lot of people get the flu vaccine, and we understand you have to get a new one every year because it morphs, it changes. And I think I don't think that wearing masks will ever fall out of use, but I do not foresee a future, like in 2 years, or God forbid it should take that long, but whatever, of us wearing masks very much.
All right, we're off to a good start on moral side of the news today, and we're talking about the community. So let's talk about the worldwide community. The world is watching Russia blast its way through Ukraine, and President Biden says defending freedom is going to cost Americans. Of course, he means at the gas pump, as President Biden ordered a ban on Russian oil imports, and the stock market is also reacting. So turning to our panel, are Americans prepared for this and making sacrifices in the name of freedom?
Well,
I hope they are. I mean, I actually have heard quite a few people say, I don't like the gas prices, but if it helps Ukraine, I'm willing to do it. I haven't said a lot of people like that, and I'm certainly concerned about that. I think we do have to be careful that some of the companies aren't simply using that to gouge people because we don't get that much, gas from Russia. Europe is 40%, so they have a whole different problem.
I think we only get 3%.
Excuse me?
I think the United States, only 3% of our oil
that's correct.
comes from Russia,
and
none
last
of our
I
natural
saw.
gas.
And
so I don't understand why the prices are going up so much. And in terms of who's going to have to sacrifice, I think the oil companies should start to sacrifice a little bit. I mean, last year their profits were up, I wrote this down, $174 billion. And still we see gas prices going up. In February, BP reported its highest profits in 8 years. And this is during the pandemic when, people could use a break. A lot of people are their income has been disastrously affected. Chevron made $15.6 billion in profits. I mean, it's so not necessary. Talk about caring for the common good.
But I think what's going to happen is a lot of other things beside our gas, obviously the price of food and trying to get all of that. This is not going to be easy, especially in a time of inflation. So I think that if there are things, reducing the gas tax some, that might not be a bad idea. We just have to look around. Excuse me, Kilen.
No problem. I would hope, my response would be, I would hope that Americans are ready to act in solidarity with our sisters and brothers in the Ukraine. I think what is happening there is unconscionable. And I think that we as Americans should speak continually that voice together, that this is unacceptable, what is happening there. But my hope and my cautious hope is that we don't end up politicizing even this type of response. We have, because of what Gaylia had talked about earlier about us being so, and she is right, we are so polarized politically. And at least we know that there's one aspect of our political spectrum that is prone to politicize even a drop of rain. So I would hope that we don't end up politicizing what happens as a result of us acting in solidarity with the Ukrainians, with prices going up across the economy. It's going to happen. It's a part of what's going to be a temporary, as temporary as we can see. It's going to have an impact. And I pray that we don't end up having this become just like we have for masks and vaccinations. It ends up becoming a political ploy or some political opportunity for those opportunists who tends to see everything in political lenses that try to attack President Biden or the vice president or the current administration, who is simply trying to make sure that there's good reason and incentive for Putin to change course, which there's no guarantee of that. But my nightmare on this whole thing is that we end up making this like every other issue that comes before the body politic, and we politicize it to our shame.
I agree 100%, Kilen. I think that I've already heard people saying about how gas prices were so low during the Trump administration. Well, yeah, no one flew, no one drove, it was a pandemic. We weren't using much gas. It's, the whole consumer, the more you want it, the higher the prices can be. The less demand there is, the lower the prices. So, that would be a completely fallacious argument. And I think for the most part, our country is fairly united in the response to Putin's obscene aggression. I heard that Russia bombed a children's hospital or a maternity hospital or something. And yesterday, yeah. I think the country is, I think the world, most of the world is fairly, we have some good solidarity going there. I can't help but think back to the beginning of World War II. And, I think John F. Kennedy wrote his thesis at Harvard, I think it was his senior thesis, that if only we had stood up to Hitler sooner, it would never have gone as far as it went. And, America waiting things out and people not wanting to get involved in another world war, which I totally understand. But, we let Putin take Crimea and there were no significant consequences. And so, why shouldn't he? Obviously why, but I think that sort of gives permission for him to try to extend his reach and further and further and further. And that's just how it happened with Hitler and the Nazis. It says in the Talmud, a lion is seldom satisfied with a handful. And I think, that's what it is. I think that we need to be aware of that. We have some history that we can learn from. And I think that if we would just be very clear and very strong, it's already showing, the sanctions are already making a significant difference.
Well, that was going to be my follow-up question. Do you think this is just the latest sanction? Are they working, and will they be enough to make a difference, do you think?
They are absolutely working. I mean, the ruble is at an all-time low. The stock market is in free fall. Today, Thursday, when we're recording, Russia closed its stock market because it was just such a, everybody's trying to get their money, and the oligarchs who, have really lived with impunity. And it's starting to be felt. It's not just that, oh, we seized a yacht here or a private plane there. We know that there are so many Russians who are against this war. They're not even allowed to call it a war. I mean, at the risk of, I think it's 15 years imprisonment or something for demonstrating against the war. So certainly Putin is not representing the Russian population, although when did he ever?
I
think it's always difficult to read the mind of a Putin, and whether it's changed over the years or not. But obviously, he has some vision of Russia coming back as a Soviet Union, or at least the Russian Empire, in his imagination, and thinking everybody's going to agree to that. His own people don't agree with that. But I'm not sure we can do anything to change his mindset, except try to give him an exit ramp that he might accept. And I have no idea what that exit ramp is going to be. It is interesting to me that how ecumenically and interfaith-wise there's been a coalition, and especially the very touchy thing between the Orthodox, and at least the Roman Catholics, and the Russian Patriarch of Moscow. Many of the Orthodox are now putting lots of pressure on him to say, you need to help stop this because you know Putin. And as his religious leader, you need to do this. He's done the opposite of that this past week, kind of supporting it, which is scary. But I mean, I'm hoping our religious communities can have some effect in all this, not just humanitarian, but in peace-wise, as the world community tries to come together on this.
I think that part of our preparation also is to remember that we just had a guy like Putin in the White House, and that this person spewed out seeds of autocracy and the worship of autocrats within our political system. And the way that we can really help to support Ukraine while we do all that we're doing right now is to make sure that we stamp out as much as possible morally, to show the moral bankruptcy of persons who tend to venerate autocrats like Putin within our own political system.
We've got about 5 minutes left, and I'd like to move on because I'd like to spend a little time here. The community and the WHAS Crusade for Children lost a broadcast icon this week. Longtime morning radio voice Wayne Perkey died of COVID-19 at age 84. He hosted the WHAS Crusade for Children telethon for 20 years. So turning to our panel, any of you want to share a story about the legendary Wayne Perkey?
I love
Wayne. There's so many different stories you could tell. He lived in Anchorage, and when I was pastor of the Church of the Epiphany in Anchorage, we would run into each other a lot, of course, obviously with the Crusade for Children as well. And always, I guess what I always saw about his sunny personality, was always, hey, Father, how are you? It's always, he always seemed to be excited about meeting everybody. And we need people like that. I think that bring a lot of sunshine and hope. He had an interesting morning program on radio for all those many years, as well as what he brought to the Crusade. Just a good man in lots of ways. And it's so sad about his life being taken by COVID after all the vaccines that he's been through, which scares us all. But happy memory of a great guy, Wayne Perkey.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I loved Wayne. You know, the way you said he was always so cheery when he would see you, his whole face would light up, you know, oh, it's my rabbi, you know, no matter where we were, when we bumped into each other. I mean, it was, he was the most well-named person I know, Perky. And that he could be that way in the morning. I hardly ever caught his show because
that is his real name, by the way. That's not a stage name. That's his given name, Wayne Perkey.
Yep. And his love and commitment for Crusade for Children, you know, even after he retired, he would do anything for Crusade for Children. It wasn't just a show. It was in his heart. He really cared about the kids. He was so proud of what we did for our community. In fact, that's why he first came to Louisville, to WHAS. He had read about what this radio station and TV station was doing to raise money to help, you know, children with special needs in our community. And he said, you know, I want to go be part of that. And he had always gone, you know, every few years to a different job. But this time, you know, he never left. And his heart will always be with us. And I just wanted to say, I really appreciated what you said at the beginning, Joe, when you said, we'll talk about Wayne Perkey later. You said Wayne Perkey of happy memory. Because we always say of blessed memory, that's a Jewish phrase, or I don't know, maybe everybody uses it, but of happy memory. And that's going to stick with me. I love that. Thank you, Joe.
He's the face and the voice of WHAS Crusade for Children. His personality put a stamp, an indelible stamp on the work that the Crusade does. We will definitely miss him. We will miss him. And whether you knew him closely or had interactions with him, but knew him through his work. And that's my story, is that I look forward to seeing his voice and hearing his voice and seeing his face on television and with his radio broadcast. It was his voice and face was equal to the personality that everybody was blessed. And I pray that WHAS Crusade for Children memorialize him in some way to make sure that he continues to be a part of the work that the Crusade does.
One of the pictures that I guess it was the Courier, or I saw it somewhere, of Jim Walton and Phyllis Knight and Wayne Perkey. There was like 4 of the giants that have all passed on to their eternal reward.
And Milton Metz as well was in that.
Milton Metz, right?
Yes.
How could I forget Milton Metz?
Yes.
Milton Metz. Yep.
So great giants that have led the Crusade over the years and our city.
You know, I was just going to share one thing. You've heard the expression WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. Wayne Perkey was the epitome of that. He was genuine, down to earth, always had that big spot and the big voice. When you first met him, that baritone voice, it was like, wow, that's a broadcaster, and he will be missed. Last year, 68th Crusade, his 54th personal crusade, 8:00 Sunday morning. He was there, age 83, and said to me, what can I do? How can I help? Yep. That's Wayne Perkey. He will be missed. May he rest in peace. That will bring to a close our moral side of the news this week. Thank you to Rabbi Gaylia Rooks, Dr. Kilen Gray, and Father Joe Graffis. You can catch this program again anytime on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search for Moral Side of the News. Until next time, thank you, panel, for the memories. Thank you for your thoughts. We'll see you next time. Have a great week.